Welcome back, geometry students. We're going to wrap up the whole unit on parallel and perpendicular lines, part 1. And we're going to wrap it up by finally talking about constructions. Woohoo! Parallel and perpendicular lines with our good friend, the compass. So we're not going to do too many of them. So just a couple things that are going on. And I'll just go run through some examples, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is talk about constructing parallel lines. Now what's neat, if you want to see this cool little video of, I'll have this on my Edmodo 2 for my classes. They have some neat videos to walk you through, but you don't get to hear my lovely voice. But that's there for you as well. So what we're going to do, I wanted to show you kind of how the questions would look and then what to do with it. So what we're going to do is construct a line parallel to a given line and then through a given point that is not on the line. So look at what's happening here. We have given line PQ and a point R not on PQ. So what we're going to do is basically draw that. Okay. So I'm going to take my straight edge and give myself some space. And I'm going to draw what's given to us. Okay. So I have a little line here, and I'm going to label it PQ. Okay. So there's P, and there's Q. And then what we're going to have is a point R not on PQ. So somewhere, let's say over here, because it really doesn't matter, and we'll call that point R. Okay, now what we're going to do with that information is construct RS through R, where RS is parallel to PQ. So we're going to construct another line parallel to PQ, and then we'll give another point somewhere, we'll call it S. Okay? So how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, the first thing we need to do is not really connect, but we're going to have to make a line through our given point, from our given point through our given line. So this, step 1, just make a. It doesn't have to be too fancy, but I would say give yourself some space to work up here. Okay, give yourself space to work up there, and you'll see why in a second. And we make this new point here. So we'll call that step 1. And that's the thing I want to do. Give myself some space to work up there. Now why? Because if you see what we have just done, what we have just done is created an angle. Okay, so right there we've created an angle. And now what we're going to do is construct a congruent angle. Do you remember how congruent angles work? Okay, so hopefully if you remember how congruent angles work, you place your center of the compass on the vertex, adjust your radius to, it doesn't really matter, but wherever you adjust it, leave it. Okay, so you scribe your arc there, and you leave your compass measurement, and you go to your point R that was given, and then line up the center of your compass on point R. Keeping your compass measure, you make another arc. Right, so remember how that works. And then we have to look at the 2 new points here, so we'll call that step 2. Okay, and then we look at the 2 points we had just made. And we're going to measure those 2 points using the compass. So I'll measure it this way from one point to the other. Remember how the measurement works. You adjust the radius until you see the point through the middle of that hole, right? So you measure there. Now we have the compass measurement. And we're going to leave the compass measurement and move it to our new point. Okay? And then construct your arc. And we'll call that step 3. And now what just happened on step 3 is that we made this new point. Okay? So you made your new point on step 3. So now what we have done is precisely constructed a parallel line. How does that work? Well, look at your given point R. We now have a point here that's going to be parallel to PQ, right? So all we have to do now is connect our straight edge through the point that we've just created, and wha-bam, parallel lines. Okay, so we've created parallel lines just like that. And then we'll call that step 4. But more importantly, we have to label it, right? So we're going to have that new line RS. Here is our new line RS. We've now constructed it parallel to the given line. So these will be the compass markings that I look for to let you know how that's going. And again, here's a neat website. You can see it without me talking, which some of you would prefer. So that's that one construction. Next, I know this says example 3, but don't worry about it. So the next construction we're going to do is construct the perpendicular to a given line at a given point on the line. Okay? So now what we're going to have to do is read the directions carefully. We have given point K on line L. All right, so what? So point K on line L. Well, let's first make line L. Okay, so we're going to do that. So here's our line, and we'll label that line L. Okay, so we've done that. Now, but we're given point K on line L. So it doesn't matter where, just throw a K on there. Now we have point K on line L. Okay, so you see how slowly we're building to what was given to us. So we've made line L, we got point K on line L. Now what we're going to do, we're going to construct RK with RK perpendicular to line L. So we're going to construct some line with a new point R that connects to that point K somewhere on line L. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to use point K, okay? So now we have point K. We're going to put our compass center on point K. It doesn't matter what the compass adjustment is, so we can pick whatever we want. I'll pick there, and then we're going to scribe our arc. And this is hard, like if you're not ambidextrous. So we kept our measurement. We scribed our arc. Now look what has happened. We have made two new arc marks right here and right here, like 2 new points. And so what we do is we're going to take the center of the compass that we just used, place it on one of the 2 marks, and then adjust the compass again. Okay, we'll adjust it somewhere in between here. So let's say like right there. All right, so I'll have the compass adjusted there, and then somewhere out in space, like above point K, like somewhere above point K, make an arc. Okay, and then keeping that compass measurement, spin that bad boy around, and center it on the other new point. And then wha-bam. And now we have a new point. Okay, so we'll call this step 1 where we made the thing there, and now we'll have step 2 here, and now we have a new point. Okay, so there where those cross is a brand new point. What should we label that brand new point? Well, read the directions. It looks like we should label that point R, because we're constructing RK perpendicular to line L. So now what happens, remember we had point K, well now we have point R, and if we connect our points there, we now have this new line, RK, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen, RK is indeed perpendicular to line L. Okay, and that's exactly what we have just constructed. So I'll be looking for these construction marks. And there's the video for that one too, if you don't like me talking. Next, so what we're going to do is use a straight edge to draw EF, and then we're going to construct FG so that FG is perpendicular to EF at point F. All right, what's going on? So here's the directions. We're going to use a straight edge to draw EF. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so we have our straight edge, and then we construct EF. It doesn't matter where we put the point. So let's say this is E and this is F, right? It doesn't matter where. Okay, so we have that. And then the instructions say, well, now we're going to construct FG so that FG is perpendicular to EF. So now we have this new point G somewhere, but here's the deal. FG, wherever G is going to be perpendicular to EF. So we're going to draw a perpendicular to EF through point F. So it's basically the same construction we just did, but now it's going to go a little bit quicker. All right, so I line up my center. This is the same construction we just did, but the instructions look a little bit different. Okay, I just want you to see what the directions would look like. So we have our step 1, we make our new points there. And then step 2, we put the center on the new points, adjust the radius somewhere in between the given point and our new point. And then somewhere up there, lined up on the same side, somewhere up there. And now we have our new point, which is point G, according to the instruction. So now we have made point G, connect G to F. We now have a perpendicular line, FG, right? FG is perpendicular to EF. Ta-da! So it might look that way. Okay, so it's the same construction we just did, but I moved a little bit quicker, and you can see the instructions are a little bit different. So make sure you're familiar with that. And next. Oh, this is a postulate. What is that doing here? So just so you know that through a point not on a line, so here, like here's a line, here's a point not on that line. Through that point not on the line, there's one and only one perpendicular to the given line. Okay, perpendicular to the given line. This has a name. Okay, we're going to be doing something called dropping a perpendicular. So we're going to drop a perpendicular. There's only one line perpendicular to AB that goes through C. And how do we do that? If you remember segment bisector from the first round of construction, it's the same type of thing, right? So we're actually going to do a segment bisector. So how can we drop a perpendicular? The point not on the line, we put the compass center on it, and then we cross the given line here, right? And from there, we can, well, let me make 2 new points. Here's one there, and one there. And from there, we put our center and arc mark here down there, so in case you can't see that. And then with the same measure of the compass, arc mark here. So remember, just like segment bisector, it's the same steps, the segment bisector. And so now, from that point, not on the line, here is the one and only perpendicular to the given line. Okay, so that's how we would drop that perpendicular. It's called dropping a perpendicular. And so that's that perpendicular postulate. Okay, so we'll do that again, shall we? Let's take a look at these instructions. Check this out. Here's what the instructions might look like. Draw a line CX and a point Z not on line CX. So we're going to do that. Okay, so here's a line, and we'll call it CX. And it says in a point Z not on CX. So let's make point Z somewhere up there. Okay, so that's what the instructions will look like. And then it'll say, construct ZB, right? So now we need a B somewhere, so that ZB is perpendicular to CX. And so we're going to have to drop that perpendicular on the given line. How do we do that? Again, very similar to segment bisector. Okay, but the original point we're supposed to make on segment bisector is already there. So we adjust our compass from the center being where it is. And then we make our 2 new points. From the 2 new points, just like segment bisector from before, we scribe an arc there, and line it up. Scribe an arc there. Now we have a new point, and this new point will be called B, right? ZB. So now we have point B, and now we have line ZB that is perpendicular to CX. We already know that's perpendicular. Okay, so we cross it through. That's perpendicular, right? It crosses at 90-degree angles. And that's how we can construct stuff with precision tools like the compass. So now we're down with parallel lines. We're down with perpendicular lines. So we should have now mastery of this entire unit. Okay, so going backwards, we totally constructed parallel and perpendicular lines. We did algebra applications all throughout stuff. We know our line theorems and their converses. And we know properties of lines and when they're cut by transversal, naming angles, and visualizing geometry. That is the unit, folks, and I'm out.